Good morning, everybody. This is Rama on Writing coming to you live from beautiful Santa Fe, New Mexico. We're going to be discussing newsletters today, and I think that the big question that many of us have is, why the heck do I need to have a newsletter? And even if I did, what would I put in it? And so, I understand that this is really a big question, and it kind of goes in line with some of our past webinars. We've talked about email marketing. We've talked about blogging. Lately, we haven't talked much about social media, but what we are talking about is digital marketing. And the newsletter is a great component to doing this. Many of us set up a website component where we ask for an email name, an email address and their name to get on our mailing list for our newsletter. And of course, that means that we need to have a newsletter, which is, of course, the next step. And then we have to think about, well, what am I going to do with this newsletter to make it into something that people will want to engage with? And so one of the main components in a newsletter is to kind of, let's say, provide information on what we did over the last month. One of the key components is to list perhaps our blogs for that month. And if we're maintaining a once a week type of blog engagement, then it's very easy to put this information in. One of the key components is not to list the whole blog, but to just have a couple of sentences and have that read more button so that they click that to move into your website, because of a couple of reasons. Number one is that's kind of like a backlink, and Google looks at that as very promising. And the other component that I feel is really, really important for us to evaluate is through our contact software, we can see what gets clicked. And if you find that one of your blog topics is getting clicked more often than the others, for example, then it gives you a good indication as to what people are interested in. And so this can really help sort out the direction that we pursue in our blogs and in our engagement with the general public. So very important. Now we use Constant Contact, and I suspect that all the contact software offer this kind of thing. When I send out my reminder for the webinars, and lately it's been book launches and webinars, I look at two things. I look at how many people actually opened the email, and then I look at what got clicked. And it's kind of surprising. I noticed that with this last email especially, I was kind of looking at certain things that, the first 250 opens came rather quickly, and there were 10 click-throughs between the book launch and my Facebook page. And then I noticed that the next 250 opens only led to one click. And I was kind of scratching my head thinking about that is, that's really kind of a peculiar thing. Why would the first 250 give me 10 clicks and the next 250 give me one click? I don't really have, any analysis as to why. It's just, these are the things you start to see, and it does provide us with some useful information, okay? And especially if we're kind of doing field research as to, sorting out what does our audience really want to learn about. Now, so if we include our blogs as a main component of our newsletter, we can also provide insight into it goes back to the Google Alerts concept that we had talked about a few weeks back, where if we wanted to be alerted for every article that shows up on the internet about mountain bike travel, for example, well then I could cherry pick that information as well and put that in my newsletter, okay? So that people begin to see a benefit from this newsletter, okay? Sometimes it's not all about us. It's about our information and our topic, and we really, need to kind of sort through, what works. I mean, what do people want to learn about? And we may have ideas, but we may not truly know. And so the newsletter is a way that allows us to get an indication as to what our audience is interested in. Now, one of the uses of social media in newsletter, traction, so to speak, is that when we do post our newsletter, we kind of want to also use our social media to say, hey, my new newsletter is out. Check out this great article about whatever. Okay, and so we have a link back from social media to our newsletter or to a website where the newsletter is. It is important to utilize our social media. Most of us don't have a good handle on why we're using social media, why we're blogging, why we have a newsletter. We've just kind of following through on some of the things that our program talks about, the webinars talk about. But this is kind of like, it's market testing. Okay, our newsletter can be very helpful and very useful in testing the market. What are people interested in? And then, as I said, it's critical to use our social media to attract more attention to this newsletter. Now, what I've noticed over the years is that consistency in both blogging, newsletters, and social media is pretty important. Okay, if you develop a following and then you take 3 months off, you're going to lose a lot of that following in that 3 months. They're going to just lose touch with you. And when you come back after 3 months, you're essentially going to have to start over. You may have a few stragglers that haven't kind of lost interest in you, but the reality is that basically, you have to start over. So consistency. One of the components about blogging and newsletters would be to have both come out at a regular time. So if our blog were coming out on Thursdays at 1 o'clock, our newsletter could come out the first Monday of the month, the first Saturday of the month, whatever it is that we want to do, but consistency rules in this game, okay? I mean, how many of you have a TV show over the years that you wanted to tune into, and so you make the time to, free up your availability for that? Well, we want to create that same kind of anticipation for our postings. So that is one component, consistency. And, as I say, we do need to look at what type of information our audience wants to engage in. And that's why we use the statistics of our contact software to kind of weed through that to determine, hey, look, I posted this great article about Starbucks supporting the vets. So, and people looked at it, so that seemed to be a good article. Well, they weren't real interested in this article about something else that we posted. Okay, so we can start to determine what to zero in on. And bear in mind that these are trends, and trends change over time. So we don't want to necessarily stop posting on these other ideas, but we want to focus in on what gets the most level of engagement. Now, there's another component to both newsletters and blogs that and social media posting that is worth talking about, and that is the term engagement. Okay, how do we get people to respond is the key to all of this digital marketing. And some ways are by asking a question that generally when you ask a question, you want the answer to be a short answer, okay? Something easy for people to respond to as opposed to something difficult. Most of the contact software allows you to put up, let's see, what was the term? It's kind of like a survey. So you could include a survey in your newsletter or your blog to see what kind of engagement you can get. The general way of doing it is to work with topics that are very easy for people to respond to, not necessarily very deep. You kind of have to trick people into responding. And so, having yes, no answers or very simple answers are quite helpful in this. Okay, so if you utilized your 4 blog postings that you did last month to be the main focus of your newsletter, you would also perhaps want to talk about your new book that you're writing, which might not be a blog posting, a trip that you went on. A lot of people are very successful using pictures and photographs, and with the adjunct of the cameras on your cell phone, this is really an easy thing for us to all engage in. And it kind of goes back to that old adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, it's probably not worth 1,000 words, but maybe 500. And so posting pictures is a very helpful thing for getting people to look at things. And one of the articles I posted this morning on my Facebook page related to a new method of posting pictures to Pinterest and having them be linked back to your website. Okay, what I've noticed with the social media is that since many of these companies have gone public, they actually have to show a profit. And to show a profit, they have to allow the users to make sales, okay? Because if you're going to advertise or use this kind of methodology for promoting your product, if it doesn't pan out to some benefit to you, you're going to move on to the next thing. And so most of these social media companies, and I think I posted 2 articles today, one about LinkedIn, the other about Pinterest, that they are now moving towards more ways that we as promoters of a product can get people to buy our product in a nice way without us going back to the example I've used many times. When someone walked into my bike shop, I didn't immediately scream at them, buy, buy, buy. And so this becomes our fine line online, is to find a way that we can bring people back to our website to engage, whether it's to purchase, whether it's to sign up to our newsletter, whether it's to just make a comment. So many of us start to feel that we're not succeeding because our book isn't selling. It does take time, and a lot of times, somebody needs to be a visitor to our site or to our blog before they're going to really spend that $12 or $6 on that book. We may not think that it's a big commitment, but it is a commitment in time. And so we do need to tease them and tickle them a little bit into coming our way. And I know that many times it can seem like we're just blogging for ourselves or putting our newsletter up without really having more than 10 people on our mailing list or something like that. But the bottom line, gang, is that if we don't get started, then we're never going to grow. And it does take time. And one of the beauties about the contact software and going deeper to the Google Analytics component of our website is that we can determine where our traffic is coming from and what they want to see, what they want to engage with, and so we can do our market testing that way. But we do have to look at those statistics. We can't just give Greg a little extra money to have Google Analytics on our webpage if we're not going to actually look at what that offers to us. And the same way with our contact software, there are so many features that those softwares offer to us. And even if you're good at it, you're only touching the tip of the iceberg. But if we want to get more out of it, we got to experiment a little bit. We got to kind of risk something new. Okay, so one of the components that many authors and many people like to use in a newsletter is they kind of like to emulate what your website looks like and make that newsletter template look the same. It kind of goes back to what we talked about, I think last week, was branding, brand identification. So, for example, Tom likes having his website have this purple colors in it. So we created a newsletter that had the similar sorts of color schemes. And also using that logo in both the website and the newsletter and your blogs can certainly benefit name recognition, branding recognition. So that's one component that many authors like to use, and many people like to use with their identification of that newsletter. Now, when Tom puts out his newsletter, he has Gwen, myself, and himself write a blog posting. And we don't really do a weekly blog. We kind of just use the newsletter as a blog. So that can be a first step for all of us. If blogging is terrifying to you, or just you don't have the time to do it, you can do the blog and the newsletter kind of as one component and get started that way. And the point goes back to, well, once a month is probably better than no times a month. So however you want to start out in this game. And one of the hardest things for us as authors to grasp is that, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard this, is, well, how can I do any of these blogging and newsletters? How can I promote my book when it's not available yet? And I think that that's the biggest misnomer that I encounter in this game. And sure, it's very difficult to wrap our head around that. And if certain components cost us extra to do, well, we may not want to necessarily venture into that at this point. But a lot of the blogging and newsletter components are something that we do start with. We get rolling, but we don't utilize. And this is a way that we can utilize and get our promotion going. If you notice how our publishing program rolls out, we do work with the development of the website at the, kind of at the front end near the beginning. Now, most of the authors don't get too involved in their website until their book is around and available. And some authors are like me and don't get the website up, which isn't necessarily the best plan. But as I say, this is an easy way that we can start to engage and start to learn the ropes. Because if we wait until our book is available and we're, at that point where we're disappointed because we didn't sell 1 million copies the first day the book was available, then all this stuff seems to be overwhelming. So it really is of benefit for all of us to start slowly, get things in place, do a little trial and error, start to see what works for our audience, what works for us, and what do we like doing. Because we're going to find that in our promotional effort, there's certain things that we like doing that are a lot of fun to us, and there's certain things that we hate doing. Okay, and obviously you're going to spend more time doing those things that you like doing. Not to say that you can totally disregard the things that you don't like doing. You still kind of want to get all that in place so that our footprint can grow. But it is very important for us to get started with these newsletters. And if the blog is a main component of the newsletter, then blogging and newsletters are almost synonymous. Okay, well, that's kind of my my talk on newsletters this morning. If you have questions, comments about newsletters, blogs, promoting your book, you can unmute yourself and we can start discussing kind of the pros and cons and directions to go. And if you have questions on what you should be blogging about, let's talk about that as well, because I think that's a component that many of us struggle with. So anyone got any questions, comments, concerns at this point this morning?
Hey, Rama, it's Catherine. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're coming through loud and clear.
Okay. When I talked to Greg, this is the area that completely freaked me out. Like it was a whole nother language. With my book, I blogged for 2 years my experience down in Argentina. And so we added a link on my website so people can actually see that actual blog. Okay?
Okay.
So my thing is I'm supposed to add another blog. Is that what I should be doing, is adding another blog to update information and what's going on?
Well, essentially, you can continue blogging as you were. You would probably want to make the blog part of your website so that your website can grow and be more powerful. The whole component about WordPress, for those of you who don't know, WordPress was a blogging platform. That's how it started out. There were a couple of other ones, and WordPress became one of the dominant, platforms for blogging. And so it's very easy to incorporate a blog into WordPress. And I would suggest doing that. Certainly leave your link and maybe even reference some of your future blogs to some of your old blog postings, so that again, you're providing more information. But it's one of the key components, and we had Greg on a few weeks back where he brought up his screen. He showed us the back office component about blogging, and the important concepts about that is that by by utilizing the back office component, what we're doing is we're providing the description, we're providing the use of the keywords that our website is based on. And for those of you who missed that webinar, blogs are based on keywords as well. Okay, that's, we may think that we're blogging because we like writing about a certain subject, but really we're blogging so that we can highlight the keywords that our whole project is based upon. And that's what the back office component is all about. And this was actually new to me. I think it was about a year and a half when we started our promotion program, and we had a gal do some webinars. And she had these really detail-filled webinars that after about 15 minutes you were in overload, and you kind of lost interest because it was just so much information. But I saw these back office components, and for the first time I realized how people's blogs grow, how they have traction. I always thought it was, well, you create a blog and people like your writing and they start to follow your blog. Well, I was wrong. What happened was people utilized their keywords effectively in their blog, and that's how the blog grew. And of course, the secondary component is that the information that you're providing was pertinent to people, but to do one without the other is just a losing proposition. So we will go back again, and we'll make Greg talk more about that back office component about blogging, so that we can really begin to understand it. And I think what we're probably going to do, it just dawned on me that I think that I'll get the reminder out early that particular week and make everyone write a blog so that we can all maybe click along with Greg and highlight those features on our particular blog postings, because it's like muscle memory. If we watch someone do it, then in the next moment we've forgotten it and it really didn't sink in. But if we click along and utilize something of our own in this process, then it really becomes, kind of gets ingrained into our being a little bit better. So I'm going to put that down on my list to do, but it will require that you all write a blog. And, that means if you use the Tom Bird method of writing, you have to devote 15 or 20 minutes to writing a blog, okay? It's not that big a commitment. And in that moment, you might devote a couple of hours and you might write a bunch of blogs. And then, it's kind of like, the production line, right? If you have a bunch of things ready to go, then it becomes a lot easier for you to, do the back office component. It's like you do one, then you do the next, and you do the next. And it really does become a lot easier. And if you do that once, if you do one session where you do the back office component for 4 or 5 blogs, you're going to remember how to do it after that. With one, it's just marginally better than just watching Greg click through. But if we actually do a whole series of these blogs with the correct back office component, then we're going to remember, and it's going to be a lot easier. So I think that may be a good webinar for us to do in the future. I'm not sure which week I'll choose for that. Next week we're in the midst of our Sedona retreat, and that will be quite entertaining because we're going to be doing a remote as well as the blog or the webinars again. So it'll be kind of like a multitasking weekend for me. But that's a really good question and concern, Catherine. I know that I have a number of other authors that have used something I think called Blogger for their blog in the past, and they're kind of looking at, well, how do I transition to using WordPress blog component, and why do I want to do that? Why not just continue working in my old platform? And
well, I use blogs. I've used blogspot.com, and I unfortunately lost the password and I can't get access to it. I have the link, so we can at least put the link on, but I can't get into it to change it up or to continue with it. So, and Blogspot, I guess, doesn't exist anymore. It may become Blogger now. So that's why I just decided to put the link, because it actually covers the book, the beginning and the end of the book. It's just little more details that the book doesn't have. So I thought it would be kind of fun to go along with the book. They could go click on that link and get a little more daily, fun stuff during the book. So that's why I put it on there.
You could also probably just cut and paste into the WordPress blog. It's and in doing that, what you could do is you could take advantage of the back office component of the blog, and that way you'll get a lot more traction out of it. So you might just, kind of slowly cut and paste that into your blog, and it would make it easier for you because you wouldn't have to write new stuff. You've got all this stuff that, has already been created. That's one of the things that many of us, get hung up on, because something is old, something it's on another website. We get the feeling that it's repetitive. But the bottom line is that it's probably better to work that way than not work at all. And what you'll find is that, the big retailing secret was that when someone opened the door to my bike shop, they could only see in that first glance a certain segment of the store. Well, that segment became the most important retail space, and we rotated that regularly. We didn't necessarily get different stuff in the store. We just rotated that first view over and over again, so that if someone came into the bike store one week and they came back the next week, they might see a whole different sort of product line that they just never saw before, because it was over here on the right-hand side and they never wandered over there. Okay, that's a huge retailing trick, is to always move stuff around. Now, of course, when your Safeway changes hands and they start moving all the food around to different locations, it can be a pain in the butt. But for us, we can just repackage things a little differently, and there'll be more people that see it the next time. So it could be a very effective thing for you to do, Catherine, and it will get you started. And what it'll do is it will give you an archive, so that it appears you've been doing this for a lot longer than you have. And that will go to your benefit. There's no doubt about that. Any other comments about blogs, newsletters, social media, wonderful things like that we all want to kind of run as far away from as we can?
Rama, this is Amy.
Yes.
Comment to Catherine is, when you lose a password to an existing site that you've been involved with, or an account, or in general, you can, if you can still get at the material, that's cool, and you say you've got the link, but establish a new, and you may have already kind of said this, but you can establish a new blog site and then link back to the other archival material. Since it apparently is still available and readable in that kind of fashion. And if that were not the case, you probably still have the originals, and so you can post them again, as Rama delights in reminding us. So, and the thought that I had earlier was, as far as blog topics go, you don't have to stick to strictly the subject of your book, you can involve other things that you're interested in that may be somewhat tangential. Just a thought.
Amy, thanks for that. I think that, that becomes a real troublesome issue for many authors as to, well, do I have to always blog on the topic that my book is on? And although it is beneficial to have some blogs that are in that same genre, one of the components that we're striving for with our blogs and our newsletter and our social media is to share who we are. And if you're interested in RV travel and your book is about mountain biking, you can still develop a blog that is related to RV travel. I mentioned that because there was one gal, this is a while ago, she was an astronaut's wife, and her book was about that whole part of her life, but she was really interested in RV travel, and her family and her had gone through a lot of great adventures, and she struggled with that for a while until she kind of realized, well, heck, why not utilize that? See, the whole component that we're dealing with is we're trying to attract people to us. It's like a magnet, right? And even if they come to you for RV travel, once they start to like who you are, there's nothing that keeps them from taking the next step and looking at your book. And it's kind of a support sort of thing. So if you're providing them with some good information and stories on something else, they might be willing to spend that $5.99 for your ebook, okay? And of course, you start thinking, well, $5.99 isn't a whole lot, and what's the point? But think about it this way, that $1,599,000 is a lot of money. Even 100 of them is a lot of money. So, we got to kind of use our animal magnetism. And many authors break their blogs up into certain topics. Even this website that I'm going to put up one of these decades, is going to be multifaceted. So there'll be lots of different topics that I can write about. And many authors struggle with this even in second books and third books. Is, well, do I have to write on the same genre? And many of us don't. Many of us write, maybe we write in a style, but our genre is different from book to book. So same thing with our blogs, with our components, is that we can utilize different topics very effectively. Thank you, Amy. That's been pretty helpful to get us thinking outside of that box. I know Tom's got a comment, so Tom, what's your comment?
Well, what?
No, not you. You see, Tom Bird wandered in, and he's such a good talker that it doesn't matter. You just prompt him, and he'll start talking.
Mostly his comment is, "Don't mess up."
Stronger verbiage.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. It's very important to not try to shortcut a link to some other website or some other blog. I think you really need to consult, Greg at Silver Knight, because if someone looks at, going to our blog from our website, I think it's better than going off, linking to some other old blog. And I found out that my technical skills improved as I needed them. And when you said about just start blogging, it's very important. It's when I first started posting on Twitter and on Facebook. Then I started, some of my posts and tweets got some legs. I said, oh, I'm going to start tracking now. How do I do that? Now I've got some skin in the game, so I learned how to find out which tweets were most popular, when was the best time to tweet, what image that went up on Facebook got the most clicks. Now I'm interested in how do I track all this? And which leads me to a question here. You're tracking, are you doing that with Constant Contact? How do you know I opened the email and what I clicked?
You know, I have to. This is a really funny story. Okay, you know, several years ago, I knew nothing about Constant Contact, just like all of you. Okay, you know, I'm not afraid to click buttons and make mistakes, so I might have a little advantage over many of you. And what would happen is that I would send out an email through Constant Contact, and I would, you know, I would get, you know, I would get responses back from people saying, well, I didn't get that email. They'd call me and say, you know, is there a webinar happening this week? You know, I didn't get the reminder. So I started to click on and see who opens those emails, and I'd say in about 75% of the cases, there's people that called that said they didn't get the email had opened it, but you know, for whatever reason, it didn't sink in. And occasionally, I would find someone that didn't open it, and we'd sort through. Sometimes it was related to the fact that it was the wrong email address. It wasn't one that they were using. You know, the obvious thing that happens on a regular basis is that emails end up in your spam folder. And so things like that can happen. But it became, you know, my first response to the people that said they didn't get the email. And a lot of this was related to a specific programs that we were running, not so much the Rama on Writing series, because this goes out to a lot of different people, but we would have some of our best-selling author programs where we had a series of webinars, and so there were only 5 or 6 people in the group, and they knew that there was going to be a webinar that Wednesday, and for whatever reason, they missed the email. So I started to check on it, and there were certain people that week after week, it was the same story. Okay, and I just wanted to know myself that they opened the email, so I could say, well, you opened the email, and it would say exactly when, what day, what time they opened the email. And so it became a little game with me to check that out. Now, the other component that you're talking about, Tom, is what's known as the Google Analytics, okay? This is a component that Greg can offer for our websites. And there are a lot of analytic packages that are available. Some cost a lot of money, others are free, but you know, it does require that our web person puts them on our page. It doesn't happen automatically. And I think all it is a certain series of coding that goes on our page, or maybe he's got to click a little button or something along that line. We did a webinar, boy, it seems like it's a year plus ago, about Google Analytics, and it's probably time that we revisited that again. But what Google Analytics allows us to find out is where the traffic to our website comes from. Whether it comes from a Facebook link, whether it comes from a Google search, whether it comes from someone else's website, it shows us exactly where that person came from. It also provides information like how long they stayed on your page. Okay, and I think that there may be some of the analytic packages that allow you to see how many, you know, where they went, so you can essentially track what pages they went to. And so what you start to find out is which page on your website becomes the most visited. And so let's say that you put a post up about, oh my gosh, I'm going to try to relate this to myself. Let's say that in my website, I developed a forum, which is something that I'm talking about doing. And I find that forum is the most visited page on my website. It shows me that, boy, if we continue to work that forum and make more posts to the forum, that is the best vehicle for getting people, to come to the site, okay? So then you start looking at ways that you can utilize that forum to lead to that click to buy the book or buy the service or something along those lines. What I was thinking is I want you all to send me some emails, especially those in the publishing program, about what topics you're going to blog about. Okay, it's really an exercise to get you organized. Okay, and in this way, we start to get, it becomes an accountability. Okay, most of us are talking about blogging. We want to get started with blogging. I've heard over and over again, while I'm working with authors that are publishing their book, that, oh, I can't wait to get my blog going. Okay, well, why wait, right? But let's do a little exercise. Let's send Rama@tomberg.com. You all have my email. We've all communicated quite a bit over the past several months or years. And let's start looking at this, and let's start, getting these blogs and newsletters rolling. This can only help us. Even if we're still in the process of our book, let's get rolling with this. And if you're not part of the publishing program, you can still send me this information, and I'll give you some feedback and some response as to encouragement to get you rolling with this process. The other component about blogging, and I've mentioned this, and I think that this is really critical for all of us, is to take a look at what blogs are out there that we feel are similar to our topic genre, or we can use plural topics. So I want everybody to do a little bit of research and look at what's out there and send me that information. And I promise you that I will click on those blogs, and if I feel that those are good blogs for you, and there's really only two things that make that blog a good blog for you to participate with. One is that it is an active blog. Okay, that means that there are people that are engaging, and of course what that really means is that somebody hasn't put that up and then stopped utilizing it. Okay, a lot of times something that comes up easy in a search may not be something that's active. And the case in point was the old Mountain Bike Heaven website. My standard joke was that we updated that website once a decade, whether it needed it or not. Now, we were not necessarily an up-to-date website, although we had a huge amount of information. And still, 3.5 years after that bike shop was closed, we're still coming up on the first page under Sedona mountain biking. So, those are the kind of components that we want to assess if we are going to look at places to cross-blog and to post to, is that we want to make sure that it is an active website. Otherwise, we're kind of wasting our time. If something that's posted to twice a year and no one else posts to, then, chances are that it's not going to give us a lot of traction. Well, if we can find someone that's blogging 2 or 3 times a week on our topic or on a topic similar to ours, well, then it's really going to be very effective for us to start engaging with that website. Because we're going to eventually, if we play our cards right, we can perhaps become a guest blogger for that person, take a little pressure off of them so that they don't have to come up with new content 3 times a week or 5 times a week or even once a week. And what we're going to do is we've got an audience out there that's already interested in our topic. And so we can siphon off some of that. It is a process, though. No one's going to let you, jump in there without you networking with them and connecting with them first. Well, I've used up my hour on this webinar. As I suspected, Gwen is going to be chickening out on the webinar coming up, and it is very appropriate because it's about procrastination. And I think I'm a good enough expert, and I think that all of you out there can help me with this. So I'm going to stop this webinar, and I'm going to move to the next one real quickly, and we're going to talk about procrastination and you. Take care, everyone. I'll be back in a moment on the other room. Bye-bye.